On the morning of Prince Andrew's 66th birthday, there were no celebrations planned, no family visiting, no guests. The man who was once one of the most prominent members of the British royal family had arranged to spend the day completely alone, with 7 dogs, and according to a close friend, not a single other person expected to knock on his door. That was the plan. Then, just after 8 a.m., at least 6 police cars pulled up outside Wood Farm Cottage on the Sandringham estate, and the day Andrew had quietly prepared for became something else entirely. Everyone's been talking about the arrest, and yes, we'll cover every detail of that. The 11 hours in custody, the simultaneous searches of 2 royal properties, and the allegation that sits at the centre of all of it. But the most unsettling part of his story isn't the arrest itself, it's what the hours before it reveal about how completely isolated Andrew has become, and how that isolation has been building for years. Later in this video, we'll get into the Epstein connection and exactly what Andrew is accused of passing on, and to whom. And we'll look at King Charles's response, which was careful, controlled, and in its own way more chilling than anything else said that day. Wood Farm is not what most people picture when they think of a royal residence. It's a modest cottage tucked away on the Sandringham estate in Norfolk, quiet, understated, and well away from public life. It's the kind of place you retreat to, not the kind of place you show off. Prince Philip spent time there in his later years, deliberately stepping back from the world. That context matters. Andrew woke up there alone on Thursday morning, now officially a pensioner at 66. According to a friend who spoke to The Sun, the plan was simple and bleak. A quiet day. No visitors. No birthday gathering. His 2 daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie, weren't coming. Sarah Ferguson, Fergie, the woman he remained close to long after their divorce, wasn't coming either. The friend put it plainly. The plan was to spend a quiet and lonely 66th birthday at Wood Farm, as no one was coming round to celebrate with him. He wasn't entirely without company, though. Among his companions that morning were 2 corgis, dogs that had once belonged to his mother, the late Queen Elizabeth. 5 Norfolk Terriers completed the group. 7 dogs, 0 people. That image, quietly sitting inside that detail, says something that no headline has quite managed to articulate. And then the police arrived. At 8 a.m., a convoy of at least 6 police cars descended on Wood Farm Cottage. Around 15 officers in total, according to reports. For a man who had spent years quietly retreating from public scrutiny, the morning suddenly became everything he'd been trying to avoid: visible, dramatic, and impossible to contain. Andrew was arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. He was taken to Aylsham Police Station in Norfolk, where he remained for 11 hours. While he was in custody, officers weren't just at Sandringham. Searches were simultaneously carried out at Royal Lodge in Windsor, the sprawling property Andrew had previously called home, and which has been at the centre of its own long-running tension with the palace. Both properties, searched on the same day. That's not a routine operation, that's a coordinated effort, one that had clearly been planned well in advance of the moment those cars pulled up outside his door. When Andrew was finally released on Thursday evening, photographers caught him in the back of a car leaving the police station. He looked downcast. Thames Valley Police confirmed he was released under investigation and that searches at the Sandringham estate had concluded. The statement was precise, institutional, and gave nothing away. In that sense, it matched almost everything else the palace has done in relation to Andrew for the past several years. The allegation at the heart of this investigation reaches back further than most people have been focused on. During his time as the UK's Special Representative for International Trade and Investment, a role he held for a decade, Andrew made numerous official visits abroad. The allegations now under investigation centre on reports that he shared confidential briefings from those trips with Jeffrey Epstein. Visits to Hong Kong, Vietnam, and Singapore are specifically referenced. This is where the story becomes something more than a straightforward scandal. Epstein, of course, is the disgraced American financier who died in custody in 2019 while awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges. The connection between Andrew and Epstein had already cost Andrew his royal duties, his military titles, and his HRH status. The Newsnight interview of 2019, the one he gave believing it would clear his name, remains one of the most scrutinized television appearances in recent royal history. It did the opposite of what was intended. But what the US Department of Justice's release of millions of Epstein-related files appears to have done is bring a new dimension of that relationship into focus. Not the social side, the dinners, the photographs, the visits to Epstein's properties, but the professional one. The question being investigated now is whether confidential government information moved between them, whether the trade envoy role, granted to Andrew in an official capacity, was used in ways that went far beyond its intended purpose. That is a fundamentally different kind of allegation, and it's one that the palace and the government cannot simply manage through careful statements. When the news broke, the public waited. Would Beatrice say something? Eugenie? Would Fergie, who has stood beside Andrew through crisis after crisis, offer any words? Nothing came. No statement from either daughter. No public comment from Fergie. The silence was its own kind of answer, and it confirmed something that royal watchers had been observing for years. Since the fallout from the Newsnight interview, Andrew's immediate family has been carefully managing its distance from him in the public eye. His daughters have avoided being photographed with him at public engagements. The visible warmth that once existed has been replaced by a studied quietness. That doesn't mean the relationships have broken down entirely. Families are complex, and what happens in private rarely matches the public picture. But on the day Andrew was arrested, not a single close family member stepped forward. He faced it in the same way he apparently planned to spend his birthday, alone. The statement the world was waiting for came from somewhere else. King Charles issued a written statement on the morning of the arrest. Given the circumstances, his brother, arrested on his birthday, on suspicion of a serious criminal offence, the tone was striking. I have learned with the deepest concern the news about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and suspicion of misconduct in public office, the King wrote. What now follows is the full, fair and proper process by which this issue is investigated in the appropriate manner and by the appropriate authorities. In this, as I have said before, they have our full and wholehearted support and cooperation. Let me state clearly the law must take its course. Read that back slowly. The law must take its course. Not I stand by my brother. Not I hope the truth will emerge. Just the process will be followed, the institutions will be supported, the law will run its course. It is the statement of a king, not a sibling. And whether that reflects a genuine legal and constitutional necessity or something more personal, the completion of a long, painful separation, is a question that only Charles can answer. What it does do is remove any remaining ambiguity about where the monarchy stands in relation to Andrew. He is no longer Andrew, the Duke of York, the Queen's favourite son. He is, in the language of the official statement, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, a man in his 60s, under investigation. The formal name, the full distance. It helps to sit with the geography of all of this for a moment, because the addresses in Andrew's life over the past few years tell their own story. Royal Lodge, the 30-room Grade 2 listed mansion in Windsor Great Park, was where Andrew lived for years. It became a focal point of reported tension with the palace after his royal duties were removed. There were long-running accounts of pressure on Andrew to vacate it, of negotiations over costs and security, of a standoff that quietly rumbled on while everything else around him was stripped back. He eventually moved on. Wood Farm, where he now lives, is a different proposition entirely. Smaller, more remote, a place associated with withdrawal, not prominence. And on the morning of his 66th birthday, it was surrounded by police cars. The searches didn't end there. Officers also went through Royal Lodge, the home he left behind. Whatever evidence investigators were seeking, they wanted to be thorough. Both ends of Andrew's recent life searched on the same morning. There's a comprehensiveness to that which suggests this investigation has been building for some time. What's striking, when you step back and look at the full arc of Andrew's last several years, is how consistent the pattern has been. Each stage has involved more distance, more separation, more institutional removal. The Newsnight interview in 2019 was supposed to reset the narrative, and instead it accelerated his removal from public life. The stripping of his titles in 2022 was supposed to be the final boundary. The departure from Royal Lodge was supposed to close that chapter. And now, on the morning he turned 66, the story added another chapter that nobody, probably not even Andrew, saw coming in quite this form. He spent 11 hours in a police station on his birthday. He was photographed, alone, in the back of a car, leaving. His brother issued a statement about legal process. His daughters said nothing publicly. And somewhere back at Wood Farm, 7 dogs were presumably still waiting. The question that lingers, and it's worth sitting with, is where this investigation leads. Released under investigation is not the same as charged. Charges are not a conviction. There is a long road between what happened on Thursday and any kind of final legal outcome. But the road Andrew is on now is one that the palace cannot walk with him. That much, at least, is clear. Do you think Andrew can weather this latest chapter? Or has the accumulation of it finally reached a point of no return? Let me know in the comments, and if you want to understand the full Epstein royal connection and how it shaped the monarchy over the past decade, the next video covers exactly that. Don't miss it.